Hey guys, Bryson with PRD Design here, and today we're going to be working on the Easy Care High Boy. So we just picked this truck up last weekend after being gone from the shop for almost 2 years, and we're going to be swapping on our somewhat new Dana 60 rear disc brake conversion. So last year we finished the Green Monster, and that had the very first rear brake kit on it. And so now that we have the truck back, we're going to be taking this thing to the Grand National F100 show next weekend, and we want to have our rear disc brake kit on it. And part of the reason we're going to be upgrading is because when we built this truck, so this truck has the very first PRD designed Halt disc brake kit on it, which was our 76 to 79 Dana 44 Dana 60 front. So this has a open knuckle in the front, and so we wanted to put our kit on the rear to make it all match and all that. So the kit that we used on the rear is not standard drum. So this has another aftermarket rear disc brake kit on it. It does leave some to be desired. It uses an old Cadillac style caliper and all that, and we're just not quite as happy with it as we want to be. So we're going to be taking it off and putting on our disc brake kit to give this truck even better braking, and obviously highlight our new Dana 60 rear kit. So we're going to proceed with the teardown, and we'll show you guys a little bit of that, and then once we actually go to do the assembly, we'll go through each step of the process on the assembly, torque specs, all that other stuff as we get it together, and show you guys how our Dana 60 kit goes together. So stay tuned, and we'll get this thing swapped over. All right, so we're in the middle of taking this old brake kit apart, and like I said, it kind of uses like a late 70s, early 80s Cadillac rear caliper. It has a parking brake mechanism built onto it. They're a little clumsy, and then also, with piston size and all that, this isn't really matched to what we have on the front. So there's just not, it's not the same braking as what we're going to be getting out of our new kit. But what I wanted to show, being that this is such a common type of kit that's out there, is that, so this truck has not even 1,000 miles on it yet. And part of that's because the customer lives so close to town. He doesn't do a lot of really long drives with it and stuff, but it's also, he lives in the mountains where it snows and all that stuff, and he is a very busy person, so he just doesn't put as many miles on it on the regular that maybe a daily driver might see. But even with that, there's some things with this brake kit that are a little bit unfortunate after not even 1,000 miles. So the brake pads here have some definite features to them that are not really what you want to see out of your brake pads after such a short amount of time. There's some really big gouging in this pad, and then both of the pads have a lip at the top edge, because when they get these pads on the rotor, the pads actually overhang the top edge of the rotor, and so as it's doing the braking, it's creating a big groove on the top. Well, what that's doing in turn is also putting stress on the pad. And this pad actually has a real big crack down the right down through the middle of the material here, and this pad actually has that starting. There's a crack over here that's kind of starting to work its way across there. So yeah, it's a little unfortunate that that a pad like this, with 800 and something miles on it, is showing this type of wear, and the lip that's on the top edge of this is actually pretty darn big for such a short amount of mileage. So you're just not getting the pad life out of these. The stuff that's available at the parts store for this old of a design, it just doesn't have the quality behind it that you'd really like to see. So we're going to keep tearing this down, and then we'll show you the installation of our new kit. So all right, so we got the old brake kit off of here, and now we're going to break down every step of the way as far as getting this kit installed. So once you have the axle down to just the spindle and the bare flange, show you guys how stuff is going to come in the box. So this is going to be the axle bracket box. So once you open that up, then you're going to have your axle brackets. There's a right and a left. They are different. And the orientation of these is so that the brake caliper is kind of up at about a 10 to 11 o'clock position, and then the little triangle piece that sticks out here, which goes to the parking brake caliper, that kind of goes down at about a 7 to 8 o'clock position. So once this is on here, there's kind of a little pilot lip on this axle flange here that goes around the big hole in the center, and then you'll just line that up with the holes. The brackets are going to have a slotted hole in them because there are 2 separate bolt flange patterns for here. So there's a slot in the holes to be able to fit both of the patterns on the axles. But really the installation on these is pretty simple. Once you get to that point, there's going to be a bag in the hardware box that's labeled bracket to axle flange. So this is the bolts for both sides, and it's going to be bolts, washers, and lock nuts to go on there. So go ahead and pop that open and grab out. There's going to be, being that there's 4 bolts, there's a washer that goes on both the front and back side. So you're going to have 8 washers total, and then 4 bolts and 4 lock nuts. So we'll dig those out of the bag, save the other ones for the other side. So we got that. We'll set these aside. All right, so we'll go ahead and place the bracket up here. We're going to, I like to put the bolt with the bolt head facing out towards the outside of the truck, so that way the bolt slides in and then the nut will go on from the back side. So once you have these, go ahead and slide the bolt in. This axle has some powder coat on it, so the bolt's a little snug, but that's all right. And you want to make sure that the mating surface between the axle flange and the bracket is nice and clean. So if you take yours apart, you just happen to have some surface rust or some greasy buildup or whatever, make sure it's nice and clean. Wire brush it down, degrease it, get it nice and clean between there. That way the bracket mates up with the flange just as it should. So we'll get these 4 bolts on this side stuck through. Get the washers placed. And then again, it's a top lock nut. Spin those on. And these are going to get torqued. They are a 1/2 inch bolt, fine thread. And we're going to torque these to 80 foot-pounds. And with the lock nut, they should never come loose. And that's your bracket placement. All right, so the next step, once you get the axle bracket on, is going to be to fit the new rotor to the existing wheel hub. So when you take your, if you're doing this from drums, when you take your original hub off, the drum is going to be attached to the backside with the lug studs. That's exactly how this disc brake kit that used to be on here was as well. And that's exactly how the new rotor fits, is behind with the lug studs punching through to hold everything together. So the new rotor goes on by just, you'll set it up upside down, and then you'll line up the holes. And if your original lug studs are in good shape, you can use them. So you'll just line these back up in the holes, drop them in, and then you'll have to use a punch or an air hammer if you've got access to one, or just manual hammer to drive those back in. So we're going to do that now. So once you get these lug studs here and you get them punched in all the way, the rotor should be nice and tight. There should be no wiggle room in there. If you're having a hard time getting them through and you have just a subtle amount of play, go ahead and you can throw a bigger nut over the stud, not engaging the threads, and then use one of your lug nuts to actually pull the stud through the rest of the way, and that usually will tighten it up, because the lug stud will hold the rotor nice and snug and tight to the back side of the flange on the hub. So at this point also, when you're doing this, it's a great time to inspect your wheel seals. It's a great time to inspect your bearings, and if you feel like you need new ones, or if the truck's been together for a while, sometimes it's a good idea to go ahead and replace them. Anyway, this truck has fairly new wheel bearings in it. Everything looks to be in good shape as far as all that goes. And when it was all together before, we didn't have any leaks or any issues there. So I'm not worried about the wheel seal. It looks to be in good shape. And again, all these were fairly new parts. So at this point, with the flange in place and bolted, inspect your surfaces, make sure everything's good. And then you'll pick up the hub and slide it in with your bearing. Make sure everything's on the seal as it should be. You'll pop your outer bearing in and then start to assemble your axle nuts. And for this procedure, you'll follow factory Ford specs on the torquing of these. So we'll go ahead and list it on the video. That way you have it right there. But if you have any questions, refer to factory specs at that point. So maybe. There we go. All right, so we got the axle nuts torqued on here. Got all this in place, got that tight. So the next step at this point is to go ahead and start installing the calipers, get those on. So what we have here is our Willwood D84 caliper, and get all their warning papers off of here. And so this is a 4-piston caliper. They're the same caliper on both sides. Doesn't matter. There's no right or left, any of that. Same caliper. So you got your 4 pistons here, and it's got your 2 mounting ears that hang off the bottom that will line up with the mounting ears on the bracket on the back side, and that will go here. So at this point, we have in the next bag is going to be caliper bolts, which there's 4 of these with 4 washers. And then we also have a bag of caliper shims. So the caliper is designed to have approximately 60 to 70 thousandths of shims in between the bracket and the caliper. And that is so that if there is a need, if there's any variation in any of the parts, if you need to shim the caliper by removing the shim to move it out or adding shims to move it in, you have the ability to do that with the shims. So there's going to be some 15 thousandths shims, and then there's going to be some 60 thousandths shims, and like I said, it's kind of, you just kind of get it on there and see what seems to be happy. So at this point, we'll grab 2 of our bolts and 2 of our washers. And these caliper bolts are made to have washers over the bolt head. And then we'll go ahead and we're going to go ahead and slide the bolts into the caliper. And then we're going to place just one of the 60 thousandths shim washers over the bolt heads. And we do that to just start with something. So we place those on there, and without dropping your shim washers, you start to hang this over in place. We're going to get this bottom bolt started, and then we'll slide the upper one on, Now these upper bolts are metric, and we ran metric because of the size of the hole in the caliper itself. The metric bolts just fit the holes a little nicer and make sure everything's lined up that way. So that's just hand tight, obviously, on there. And you know, you can look down the top of the rotor to the caliper, and you can see the spacing between the face of the rotor here and the inside edge of the caliper on both ends, and make sure that your gap looks fairly symmetrical. This one, we're a little bit to the outside, so even with the one shim we have in there, where the caliper is just a little bit to the outside, so I'm probably going to go ahead and add a shim washer in there between each one. So I'm going to open these ones that are in the blue bag, and these are pretty thin, so I'm going to go ahead and back these bolts out and remove the caliper. We'll put those on, and that will, adding the shim in there will move the caliper inboard, which will line it up a little bit better with the rotor. All right, so we got those extra little shims in there, and got those really nice and hand snug. It's nice and tight on there. And now we're looking down at the gap between the rotor and the caliper, and it's looking pretty good there. So at this point, we'll go ahead and put the brake pads in and make sure everything's dialed in with the brake pads, and then we'll be ready to tighten up those bolts. So there's a little C-clip in here, you pop that out. There's a slide pin, pop that out. That's what holds the brake pads. So then you got your box of Wilwood pads here. And as with all of our brake kits, these pads are readily available, so when it comes time to need new pads, you can call us up, and we'll be able to get these out to you immediately if you know you got a brake pad change coming up. And we can get you set up, that way you can get that job done. So the brake pads literally just slide right into the caliper, and you'll grab your pin, make sure everything lines up with the pad to the pin, and then slide the pin back in. Now we'll go ahead and do one last kind of eyeball check, make sure that the pad looks good in there. You don't have any initial rubbing when you just slide them in there. So obviously, you know, if we're talking minor thousandths of difference in the location of the caliper to the rotor, that's not that big a deal as long as there's no major dragging on one side or no load on it. As long as the rotor is going to freely spin in here, that's what you want. So we have that in place, everything looks good there. So at this point, we'll go ahead and put this little C-clip back in. And that holds that in there. And then at this point, we'll go ahead and torque these caliper bolts. And these caliper bolts we're going to do to 55 foot-pounds. So those are on there and tight. And that locates your caliper on there. So make sure that you keep whatever shims are left, because those will be for the other side of the truck. All right, so the next step in the process is to install the parking brake caliper, which we have here. This truck is getting the manual parking brake, or the cable operated one. So this is what it looks like. It's got the lever on the back that gets squeezed or pulled by the lever, or in the cab, pulls the cable. So this one uses the two mounting holes right here to the little triangle section that sticks off on the back side of our bracket, and gets located there. So we have a bag that's labeled parking brake caliper bolts, and there's 4 bolts and 4 washers in here. So we'll go ahead and pull 2 of them out of each, set the other 2 aside for the other side of the truck, and we'll take these. I'm gonna go ahead and lay down. We'll get this lined up. The bracket that's attached to the caliper itself is threaded, so the bolts go into the bolts go in through our bracket into the caliper bracket itself. Maybe. There we go. And there's no shims or washers in between these parts at all. They go straight metal to metal between our aluminum CNC bracket and the zinc plated bracket. On the parking brake caliper. So once you get those located, kind of hand thread them in there. Then you can tighten them up. And I like to tighten these ones. They're a 3/8 fine thread. We tighten these ones. Actually, the top one you can get to with a torque wrench. The bottom one you really can't because the arm is in the way for the cable. So we just make sure that that's pretty darn snug there. Don't overdo it, but you know, you can hand tight that. You can put like some blue Loctite on there to hold them in place. If you do want to torque the top bolt on, that one can be torqued to 35 foot-pounds. All right, so that's the installation of both the calipers, and there's a little bit of drag you'll hear on the parking brake, but once it's not much, and once you get everything going, you have a chance to drive it, everything will settle in place where it's supposed to. The parking brake caliper just floats, so there's no once it's released, it'll just kind of float there in the pads. If there is any wiggle room, the pads have the ability to kind of wiggle around a little bit. But right where it is right now is right where you want it, where there's just barely a little bit of drag on there, and those things will quiet right up once we get it driving. So, all right, so at this point, everything's installed as far as the calipers, the brackets. You could go ahead and button up your axle, put your axle shaft back in. The last thing would be the brake lines and the brake cables. So we send it with the stainless braided brake line kit. This is a rear kit. There are some brackets in the kit that you can weld to your axle tube to be able to locate all this, and it comes with the fittings to connect it to the caliper and then to the fitting on the other side. Being that this was a running truck, at this point, it does have a braided line on it, you'll see hanging here, but this one has a banjo end fitting on it, which is not proper for this caliper, so we're going to go ahead and swap out the stainless line, but we already have a fitting and stuff here on the axle that we can use, so we're going to go ahead and just swap that out. We'll get it connected up to the caliper, and we'll reconnect the parking brake cable. This is a Wilwood universal cable, which we do include their universal kit in here for new cables on your truck that will adapt right over to the parking brake caliper, and you can get that all hooked up. There's instructions on how to do that with their universal cable kit. That's what this is. It was already hooked up, so at this point we would just connect the cable up here and get everything secured, and connect the cable up according to the Willwood instructions on how to set the tension, all that. So we're going to go ahead and hook up the stainless lines, and this brake project is done. So if you have any questions as far as the installation of this kit and making sure that it fits your truck, give us a call, visit our website, PRDdesign.com, and shoot us an email, sales@PRDdesign.com as well, and we'll get a hold of you and answer any questions that you may have. So thanks for checking out our Dana 60 rear kit and the installation, and hopefully this answers some questions that you may have during your installation process, or some questions you have about how the kit fits before you get it installed. This will clear Ford 16x6 and 16x7 steel wheels. Those are the only wheels we guarantee that it will clear. Other aftermarket manufacturers and all that, we can't, test fit every wheel out there. So it will clear factory Ford Steelies, and we do know that. So thanks for checking out this kit, and we'll see you in the next one.